I'm going to be tied up for a little while.
Okay, everybody, and we're live. Let me get in there real quick. Okay, everybody, and we're live. Hold on a minute. Let me get in there real quick. Yeah.
It's all right.
Where the heck you go?
Well, I see
My phone is.
Lyle moving. I see Danny moving, but I don't see nobody else moving.
I'm moving.
Yeah,
Where?
we're moving.
I heard a ding, but where's Epic? I heard something. Did I lose him? All right. Let's say hi to a few people in chat. We have Mike Urban as in first. We have Tiger Muskies, Central Valley, Scott Swift, Joy Stewart, Annette Morgan.
Chad already starting.
Hey, Chad don't have a wrench in here because I don't have a wrench in his chat, so he don't have a wrench in here.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
We have Dallas Lebert, Fishing the Dot. We have Jello.
What's up, Jello?
Hey, Lance. 252.
In here. Lance Mukugai. Real Guys Fishing.
Hey, Chucky.
I'm going to protect her so she don't get kicked out.
Cars is in there. Jody.
Oh, that wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry. That's my bad. I was trying to make her a mod. Chat moved on me. We have Mo Bugman. We have Wabash. I'm completely sorry, Real Gals.
She said she forgives you.
I was trying to make her a mod so no one could kick her out, and I accidentally hit her.
Unfortunately for you, all she's got to do is walk in the next room and raise Cain about it.
Hey, man, Catfish Catfishing. Richard Ward. Ronnie Cluck. What the heck?
What's up, Ron?
I think I know that feller.
All right.
We got Real Gals. Hey, Annette. Hey, Ronnie Cluck.
Okay.
Scott Swift.
Would you guys like to introduce yourselves, your channels and everything, just in case we got some new people in here that don't know yous?
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
My name is Kyle Stokes, and I operate Catfish Weekly and Panfish Nation.
Steve Adams. I'm in Greenville, Mississippi. My channel is Steve Adams Fishing, Catfishing the Mississippi.
Jeremy Dufour, Creole Catfishing, East Central Louisiana, fishing Mississippi River. I'm Richard Cluck from Fishing and Freedom YouTube channel. I fish the Mississippi out of New Madrid, Missouri.
And I'm Danny Stone from Danny Stone Outdoors, and I also fish the Mississippi River around New Madrid. But we'll dip down in, and Richard will too. It goes down to Crowsville. Yep, a lot of them know where that's at. We fish all up down this river. I mean, I go as far as up past Cape Dorado at Trail Tiers and work my way south back down toward Crowsville and cover that area. And ain't no river better than the Mississippi River, brother. I'll argue that to my death.
I'm David Rogers. My channel is Rustic Outdoors. I fish in Magic County too, along with Danny Stone and Richard from Fishing and Freedom.
Did you go, Creel?
Yeah, I went.
Okay. I'm avid fisherman. I fish the Alton River, both above the dam and below the dam, and also fish the Mississippi down by the Kaskaskia. So, if you have any questions in here tonight, feel free to put questions in chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on chat as well as asking questions to these gentlemen on Mighty Mississippi. So, if you want something asked, put it in chat, and we'll get them out to them. So, what would be your best time of year for blues? Rustic.
What Danny Stone tells me.
Wow.
I've never fished blues until last year, and then everybody knows I went with Danny the first time. He asked if I want to go. I said, yeah. So we went over there, and I caught my first blue ever. I mostly chase the channel cats on the Mississippi River, big channel cats.
What about you, Lyle?
Anytime that it's warm enough for me to get on the river, it's good enough. The fish will be biting. Them blues bite year round. Channel cats, not so much, but the channels and blues, you can catch them anytime you're able to get on the water. And if you want to get out there and fight the cold and do it, they'll still bite. I'm just not going to do that. Unless I live down there by Creel.
Yep.
Who's next?
For me, it's I like fall.
There you go.
Yeah, I like fall fishing for the blues. One, for just the weather. It's easier to get out there and not fight skeeters and sweat yourself to death. And seems like I just do a little better when the water starts cooling a little bit. I don't know if they're just feeding up for winter or what, but I just seem to catch more in the fall.
I know for me during the late summer, fall, and early winter, it's my favorite time to be on the river because it's more consistent that time of year. The river's not so, up and down, up and down. The level tends to stay a little more consistent.
Yes, sir.
Mid-September to the end of December for me.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I'm with Richard on that. To me, I mean, I love fishing for blues year round on the Mississippi. But if I had to pick a favorite time, I mean, and I'll even lock it down to a month. Anytime in October, I love fishing in October because I catch some of my best fish in October. Because you'd have to be a cotton picking idiot to be out on the river right now, as cold as it is.
Hello, Epic, and welcome. How are you doing tonight?
What's up, Epic?
What's up, Epic?
What's happening, fellas? I thought I was locked out of the Mississippi Catfish Club there for a minute.
My laptop is having a little bit of a fit.
Yeah, I imagine it is. I lost sound at one point and everything else. Well, I guess since everybody else got to introduce themselves, I'll tell you what my deal is. My name's Tim Scott, and I fish the Mississippi from probably southern Wisconsin all the way down to southern Illinois. And I go after monsters just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what drives us.
And in your opinion, what would be the best time of year to be fishing for blues?
In my range, it's first weekend of August till about Halloween. It's pretty so-so before that and really kind of terrible after that. The cold weather gets them migrating back downriver. The warm weather, as long as we don't have floodwaters, as long as it's decently stable, they'll come from where, Creel's at, all the way up to where I'm at in just a few weeks.
Okay, and thanks for bringing up the next question I was going to ask the panel anyway, is what would be a best way to fish the flooded river of the Mississippi?
Find the wood.
Would you like to go first, Creel?
Yeah, my personal favorite is when the river's high and fast. I love to fish those big bank cut ins where you've got these big current seams and you got that little bit of slower water in the cut in. I love those areas in a flooded river.
What about you, Steve Adams?
Fish up in the woods. 10, 12 foot water.
Danny?
Kind of like where I'm at right now. You get some of the tributaries that dump into it, and you back up in there a little ways. And I mean, I've been getting some pretty good bites here tonight. But either that, my favorite spot, if I can get to them, is where the tributaries are dumping into the river. Because you like Creole was talking about, you got that fast moving river, and you got the tributary that's a little slower and mixing with it. If you can hit right there in that seam, man, you are solid gold. I'm telling you.
Epic?
Well, when it's high water where I fish, those fish don't change location. It becomes almost impossible to fish for them, but they're still there. Now, out of necessity, I may have to move out of the main channel epic donkey waters just a little bit. But if I go too far off of that, I'm down to 20 and 30 pound fish again. So I've had to learn how to use extra anchor rope and extra weights so that I can get to that same swath of water. The only other thing that I really have good success with is getting behind or the top side of wing dikes and going farther towards shore. I usually fish mid-range to out towards the main channel to out into the main channel. So as soon as I get too far out of the current, and I tried it for years, trying to fish more of a tributary mouth, and that does work. But for little time and kind of a shoe-in thing, I got to kind of stay with what I normally do, because that channel cat and flathead mentality really kind of hindered me years ago when the water was high. Now, high water can also hinder you pretty hard in the main channel, or they're about close to it. Because, the Mississippi will be 15 foot high as far as higher than normal. I mean, I went down there at 22 feet, and normal water down there is, 8, 9 in August. But it's been 23, 24, 25 feet. And, to contact big fish, they just don't, where I'm at, they don't seem to get off of that deeper, swifter water. All right, I'm done.
And what about you, Lyle?
In flooded water, my favorite place to fish is water that has recently been flooded, or when it starts draining back into the Mississippi, and fish above it to the
Can't read your
drainage
lips,
area.
Lyle.
Pardon me? Do what?
I didn't hear.
What'd you say, Tim?
You lost sound.
I lost sound?
No, Epic lost sound.
Epic lost sound.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I lost sound.
Yeah, you must have lost it.
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay.
I missed that whole thing Lyle was talking about. I'll have to watch it again.
I like to fish the flooded water. The more flooded, the better. And when it starts draining out of the flooded areas, draining back in the Mississippi, I like to set up above where it's draining into the river and fish to that spot where it's coming out, because all the stuff that they've been up in them flooded areas eating is also draining out, and all you got to do is be right there, and they're going to hit you. That's just the way it is. And we've done that for years and been very successful with it. You don't catch 100-pound fish every time you do that, but normally you'll catch a lot of fish. And when there's a lot of fish, there'll be some bigger ones.
Yeah.
And you, Rustic?
Well, as far as the high water on the Mississippi, I've always went when it got up real high. There's a lot of places on the river that they load grain on barges, and when it's low, if you look behind those locations, there'll be like indentations where the bank goes in a little bit. That's where I like to fish, is right in there, because when the grain comes down, it goes down into that spot and it just circles around and it attracts the fish up there. And I've done that, and I've caught some nice big channel cats out of there, places like that.
And what about you, Fishing Freedom?
During the high water, mostly out of necessity, I have to get back up into the tributaries and up in the creek mouths or a big outside bend where there's a big eddy or something, a little bit slower water that I can reach from the bank. But mostly I try to just get up in the tributaries and the creek mouths.
Epic, I have a question for you from Real Gals Fishing.
Okay.
She wants to know, when is he going to come to Missouri and fish the Mississippi with her?
Well, when I can get time. I don't know if I put up an actual video in months on YouTube, and I just now uploaded one. And it wasn't up when this thing started, but I've been getting some comments going on, on the top of my screen. So I don't know. I'm so busy. I would love to go with anybody who wants to, all over the whole country. I mean, I really wish that was my thing again, but life has thrown a monkey wrench into my time.
Mark, he'll be back after 5 minutes. No, if you guys would rather have high tide, medium tide, or low tide on the Mississippi to fish, which one would you prefer and why? Lyle?
I never fished any tidal water, so that's kind of a foreign subject.
Like if it's a high water on the Mississippi, or medium or low?
Oh, definitely high water for me. Definitely high. The reason I like high water is because it puts water in places that there's not been water in a while, and you can go in there. That's where the bait fish will be, and then the catfish just follow them up there.
Low water for me.
What about you, Freedom?
I like high water as long as I can catch it on the rise. Catch it on the rise, or if it's planed out, but as soon as it starts falling, they get lockjaw around here, it seems like.
I agree.
Epic?
Yeah, definitely not falling water. I just want stable water. I want stable low, stable medium, stable high. I don't care. Either way. Just give me the boat, give me the big donkey baits, and stable conditions for 2 or 3 days, and it's on.
I agree with you, Epic, on that. Stable waters is always the best, but never falling, because they always seem to have lockjaw.
Yep, but if I had to do a preference, I would say I wouldn't prefer super low, because super low tends to kind of spread them out. I want something, normal deal, because when the water goes low, they go deep. And I don't have that many deep spots in my area, and they won't tolerate each other in massive quantities. So they start going back down river and they start spreading out. So what I really want is just a decent normal flow. If low is on the gauge 4 to 5 foot, which it never is, but let's just say my normal spots are 30, 40 foot. I don't want to see them 20 foot and slow dead water. I want to see normal 20 foot, 25, 30, 45, 50 foot in my normal spots. And I want to see, good current, because if the current isn't there, it just kind of depresses their activity level.
And what about you, Danny?
Well, I've actually had some really good luck in the spots that I've fished for years and years and years. when it hits like a drought, when it's so low that the barges actually shut down and won't go. Over the past 40 years, I've found about 5 or 6 spots on the river where, for some reason, it concentrates some fish there. And when that river gets down low, I know I can go to those spots, and I'm gonna just tear fish up. That being said, that's because I know where those spots are, and I patterned on fish to do that. If you had to pin me down and say, what would you want your water levels to be? I'm going with Epic on that. I want it to be. I don't want it to be drought. I don't want it to be flooded. I want it to be normal river stage, where everything's just it stays stabilized to where those fish aren't freaking out about the water's going up. They're not freaking out about it going down. They've got the pattern. They're sitting up there, and that's where they're at.
Is Abbott on there twice now? Oh, there we go.
I had to because oh, there he goes. Now my tablet's back up and running. Hey, Parker, how you doing?
Hey, I had to drive up the road to get some service. Couldn't get the service at the house.
Had to drive up the road to get service.
Introduce yourself.
Gary Parker, Parker Pursuits.
And like I just asked everybody, would you prefer high waters, a medium water, or low water in the Mississippi to fish?
I would prefer medium holding steady.
Okay, now I know you guys all have your own little niches and your tips. And what would be your best tip for if you tell someone how to fish the Mississippi? What would it be, Parker?
I'm a big fan of fishing the wing dikes. Learn how to read the current seams and the cover. Just take a look at your banks and everything. And Navionics is a big, big help. But the big thing, just learn how to read your current seams and everything, your eddies and everything. Now, for a bank guy, that's one of the biggest things you can do.
Lyle?
Well, that's kind of a tough question, but my thought would be, if you've not been on the river before, go with somebody that has a lot of experience to keep yourself out of trouble, because that river, although I consider it the very best fishing waterway in the United States, it bears some watching. So if you're not familiar with it, you need to be with somebody till you get familiar with it to save your butt. It demands respect, and if you don't give it to her, she'll bite you. And go with somebody and let them teach you a few things before you try to go out there by yourself if you're not experienced on that waterway.
Chucky, I will be going live on the Mississippi with Parker as soon as my work schedule gets me free, because I owe Parker a fishing trip, and I haven't forgotten that. Enjoy has a question. How does the current affect fishing, and what do you do on the Mississippi? Who would like to answer that one?
The current affects the way that river is fished 100%. 100% of the time, 100% all the way. And if you can't figure out where the current seams are or where the current is going around in a bend or something, it's all relevant. Anytime there's current, which there's always current on that river, you got to figure it out and know where you want to fish.
And the amount of current will also dictate the species you're after.
That is correct.
Yep.
What do you think, Creel?
I mean, current speed to me dictates everything. The faster, the better for me, because a fast current is going to pin those fish down in certain key locations that I know in my river. And the harder that river is running, that's that much less water I have to cover to try to find them. If that river's running 5, 6, 8 miles an hour, 75% of the places I fish, it's no use I waste my time. they're only going to be in a couple of places because they have no choice now because the river's running too fast for them.
What do you think, Freedom?
Yeah, the current dictates every aspect of the fish's life and the fisherman's life. I mean, it can be very beneficial because I think a lot of fish like the current and they hang around. A lot of the big fish hang around in the big current, but it also makes it hard to get to those fish out of a boat, and especially like me from the bank. But yeah, if you can find, like Jerry was saying, them current seams, they're some of your best friends. If you can find current seams, you can usually find the fish because they're just gonna be laying around just outside of it, getting whatever food comes to them usually. And yeah, current's a big deal. It's your friend and your foe at times.
Yeah.
Epic.
So first, I'd like to say every time Lyle talks, all I see is everybody doing this, and I don't hear a peep out of Lyle. I am going to have to watch this again because I'm sure Lyle's got some interesting things to say. Well,
We'll start doing that.
Yeah,
Start
okay.
doing that, you know?
Yeah, that I'll definitely have to watch.
Well,
I
Lyle's
don't see
like
anybody
the
doing that when Lyle
Godfather.
talks. All right, so I'm going to have to agree with the rest of the panel. Current is everything when you're talking catfish, and especially on big rivers like the Mississippi. So, and just like somebody said earlier, yeah, high water and fast current makes it hard to get to them. But in my mind, there is no current on that Mississippi because these fish are so acclimated to heavy current and heavy water. There is no current too fast. And so far, I have not proven myself wrong on that yet. Because, I mean, there's some impossible spots. It's almost impossible to anchor. It's almost impossible to put your baits down. I got to, go away from big donkey baits to little tiny things like this just so I can get it to the bottom. And sure enough, the big fish are there. And it makes it so it's a ton more work. I mean, there's been a couple times when, I didn't do it, but I wanted to. I wanted to up anchor and go to slower water because to get a 70 to the boat was ridiculous.
All right, Epic, I have a question in chat from Shad. I'll let you answer this one. Come on.
Hang on. You didn't let me in on the current one.
All right, go ahead real quick, Danny.
I was waiting my turn, man. I was waiting my turn.
I got a smart. Go ahead and answer it, Danny.
Okay, now I agree with Tim on the fast current part. But here's what I found. If I could find, especially like a wing dike, I mean, everybody knows about wing dikes, where that fast current is ripping past it, okay? You throw out there that fast current, and as it sweeps it out, a lot of times it'll form like an eddy there, swirling around. I've had baits that just go around in circles and circles and circles until all of a sudden the rod goes down and starts pulling. If you can't get to a wing dike, if you can find a point, just a point of land sticking out a little further into the river, into that fast current, and you throw into that, let it sweep down into that little, like a cove or something, that fast current, those fish are right off that. They're not scared of that fast current. They're moving in and out of it. And they'll move up into them eddies where that water is swirling around, because that's bait fish is getting pulled out fast current and hits those eddies and just swirls around in there. If they get knocked around, that's where the ones floating or stunned are going to be. So, yeah, hit the fast current and let it drift into the scene. Now you can go.
Epic.
Hey, I'd like to go back to the first time to tell somebody that goes on that river. And this is just one little quick point. Never been on the Mississippi. You got a boat and you go. Don't worry about the points. Don't worry about anything. Look for the river signs that the towboats use for navigation. All of those navigational signs are going to be sitting on a point. And anchor right there at that sign, drift back a little bit and throw your bait in that current scene. All of the mile markers and the navigational aids on that river are sitting out on points so the towboats can see them.
Yep.
Go look for those. If you've never been out there before, go look for those and you will catch some fish if the fish are cooperating at all. That's all I have to say about that.
That's a good point, Steve. That's really a good point because
that was
honestly,
question to the panel from Apache.
Okay.
if you could go back in time and tell your rookie self a bit of advice, what would it be? Rod setup, baits, types, etc.
Well, first thing as I tell myself is pour your own sinkers because when I first started, it was pretty frustrating. 3-ounce sinkers don't cut it, and stacking 3 or 4 or 5 of them don't cut it either. Do not go to the Mississippi and expect to catch monsters with 20-pound test. You can do it a few times, but you're going to get some heartbreak. Take bait because the Mississippi, for one, is, I mean, it takes a little while to be able to be successful catching bait in a few hours. Now, this was, I started fishing it before the Asian carp invasion, but now that there's Asian carp, you can usually get some sort of bait with relative ease, but I'm not a big fan of that being my only bait. So take bait, pour big sinkers or buy them or find them, minimum of about a 7/0 circle hook, preferably an 8 or a 9. You don't have to have huge baits, but you got to learn the placement and you know what Steve said up there is hanging around the trail markers, at least in that line, more than off into the current seams that are too close to the bank. And you know, you can catch big catfish on the Mississippi almost anywhere, but wherever you're at is going to take you an exorbitant amount of time if you're not in their direct zone. If you can stay in their direct zone, that's a little bit different. So, you know, and don't go with a tiny boat. Don't go with a small boat. I mean, you can probably fish some backwater and stuff like that. But if you're after monster blues like me and monster flatheads, you're gonna have to be equipped for it. As far as rods and reels, wow, I would not use, doing what I do, a Garcia 6500 again if you paid me. The thing feels like a thimble. I love them for channel cats and I don't mind them for flatheads, but it feels like this tiny little, it literally feels like a Snoopy rod to me.
He agrees. He agrees 100%. He absolutely agrees with you.
Yeah, oh, he's great. Everybody's going like this.
He agrees. He agrees.
Yeah.
He agrees with you.
Yeah. So let's just say if I was starting over again, one of the first things I'd do is I'd get on YouTube and watch these gentlemen do what they do. Because, you know, back a long time ago, there was nobody going to tell you the truth about it. They were going to tell you to go somewhere really dumb and use baits that are even dumber. So even if they knew what to do.
I would agree 100%. There's so much information available now that we didn't have even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, you can go on YouTube and find a video right now about basically anything you can think of. And I would definitely go and just start watching all the guys that, not just guys that have a cool looking channel, the guys that are consistently looking, you know, to catch big fish and doing it. I would go watch them guys, see what they're doing. And you were right. Just a lot of the older guys back in the day, they were there and they would be willing to teach you, but some of the bad information they gave you just wasn't very good. You know, I remember when I was a teenager just starting to go to the river, there were some older guys here in town I'd go with, and they were like, okay, using, you know, chicken guts and chicken livers and all this other stuff for bait, and talking about all the hogs they were going to catch on light spinning reels and this and that. And I never caught nothing with them.
Yeah.
I'd go and do what they did and didn't catch nothing. I started watching some of these guys, well, a lot of you right here, and I started kind of doing what y'all was doing, upping my gear, getting better baits, fresher baits, and started catching more fish. So, yeah, a lot of guys will give you the information, but it's bad information. You know.
Yep. And you do have to be careful which river you're watching, because there's a whole lot of fish on the Tennessee River, and I'm not making fun of them or whatever, but you'll see situations on the Tennessee that doesn't really translate to the Mississippi. I mean, some of them do, some of them cross-reference, but I see a lot of slower water on the Tennessee that holds big fish, where it doesn't seem to hold big fish on the Mississippi. It's just the nature of the river. So yeah, if you're going to the Mississippi, pay attention to people that fish the Mississippi, and if you're going to you know, any of those other smaller rivers, yeah, pay attention to those. You're gonna do well. I'll tell you what, if you want to learn how to fish wing dikes from shore, watch Parker Pursuits. Now, I don't know if anybody else on the panel fishes wing dikes offshore exactly like he does, but he's got the classic approach. He pretty much goes out as far as he can, fishes downriver, throws one out, and gets it going like this. And, you know, there's 150 wing dikes in a pool on the Mississippi, and there's only about 6 of them that are any good. So as a bank angler, you're going to take some chances there. You can't just hop from one to the next and see what you do like I do. You know, you have to make an investment. So when you watch Jerry on his live, sometimes he catches big fish and sometimes he doesn't. That's just the nature of it. I mean, anybody off the shore, I mean, that's what they've got. But as far as setting up in a classic situation to be able to take advantage of a wing dike, Jerry usually sets up on it right. So he's a good one to watch.
I'd agree with that.
Get that.
Yeah. Bank fishing in Mississippi is a whole different game than boat fishing in Mississippi.
Yeah, crapshoot. I mean,
we have well fun and
next day draw a blank.
Yeah.
Well, it's like on the Mississippi, not a lot of people drag the Mississippi. They bounce the Mississippi. I mean, they bounce the baits off the bottom. They either float, let them hang down, drift with them, but they don't drag on Mississippi because you can't do that. I mean, it just lets you go across the sandbars, and you're still gonna get hung up, and break off, and snag, and everything. I personally, I used to have a little 12-foot John boat with a trolling motor. When the river got down low, I'd go out on the opposite side of the wing dikes there where it's calm, and I'd troll out to the end, and I'd just tie up, throw anchors up in the rock, hold my boat place, throw it out there in that current as far as I can get it, let it go all the way back up against right to the edge of the calm right there, and I've caught some nice catfish up there. I mean, like I said, I've never caught a blue, but I've always caught channel cats. And I don't know what it is. I guess I'm just channel cat inclined or something. I don't know. But, but then again, I always fish with small hooks and small baits, and channel cats love that stuff.
Well, that 6-pounder I just threw back loved it.
Yep.
I've had better luck fishing rock dikes about 200 or 300 yards south of them where the water starts to bend back to the bank. And that's where I've caught my biggest fish fishing rock dikes is, that there's a big eddy behind those dikes on the down water. And it goes out and down, and then it cuts back in towards the bank. And right there where it cuts back in, if you can ever get anchored right there and get your boat situated right, that's how I've had my best luck fishing around rock dikes in that situation. I've never caught a real big fish, 30, 40 pound maybe off the end of a dike. I never had that kind of luck off for some reason. I mean, I know they catch big ones off of those dikes, but my biggest fish always been down 300 yards below the dike, where it starts to bend back make that eddy back there. And I don't know why.
I do have a question. I do have a question for Parker though. The day that he caught the 250s or the 280s and the 50s, he went home and he came back with his friend to catch more fish. What was that feeling to catch those giants off that wing dike?
I'm gonna tell you what. At the end of that day, I was absolutely wore out from I sat out there pretty much the entire day. I sat out there for 4 or 5 hours before I ever got a hit. And then when I got hit, I caught those 3. I was wore out, but I'll tell you what. I mean, it was the best day of fishing I've ever had far as weight off a wing dike. I mean, I've had some days where I've caught just crazy amounts of fish. But that particular day, I was running really rough. As Epic puts donkey bait.
That definitely was a good day.
He caught
Now, as far as the top 3 rivers in the United States, where would you guys put the Mississippi as far as a top fishery? Would you put it first, second, or third?
Number 1.
As far as
Oh, yeah.
top fishery,
Yes.
I would not put the Mississippi, and it depends on your point of view. My point of view is I want to catch as many gigantic fish as I can. I don't care about the rest. If I was going to go try to target like 30s, 40s, and 50s and numbers of them, I would not pick the Mississippi in my area. But I would agree with Creole. I would put it number 1 as far as being able to successfully go pick out an area and be able to target a big fish and have a pretty good shot in a few days at catching one. Now, you can catch big fish on the on the Tennessee, and the Tennessee I'd probably say is number 2. I would have to say, for me, but there again, I don't know that the Tennessee has got as many 80 plus fish. They've got a lot of fish up to 70. I mean, a ton. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. But I think the Mississippi has more 80s, 90s, and 100s than the Tennessee does. But that's just me. Because, I mean, I go and I only have so many days to fish, and usually I'll catch a pretty big numbers of fish 70 plus versus anywhere else I've fished in the past.
Twisted asked the question that I see a lot of the big river guys fish industrial structure because the river has been channelized. Do you think the fish hold on that more than natural structure? Now, I'd say there's big fish scattered all over that river. I mean, I've seen some guys pull out some big blues out from underneath the barge that's been sitting there for just about a week. But, I've fished them all, and I haven't really caught no giant flatheads, but I've caught some. But if I want to go for flatheads, I'm going to go around where the log structures and stuff are next to big heavy rocks.
Wood is your friend.
I love Mississippi industrial stuff because we have a lot of it. And between sunken barges and barges that are moored constantly, especially up near shore, and this is for flatheads, you may have 5 foot underneath, but then you might have 5 feet between the bank and the barge itself and sneak a boat through there, or 8 feet or 10 feet, sneak a boat through there and drop it along the side of that. And underneath where the current has washed out, where these barges are constantly moored, it's just like a nice little channel. So it's got overhead cover, which means shade. It's got current usually when the water's down because it's crushing up underneath there. And those barges that stay there for a long time, they've got bug hatches and moon eye and all kinds of bait fish and all that stuff. So I really like that stuff.
Yeah, as far as blue cats, I don't think they really mind if it's man-made or not. If it's beneficial to them, I think they're going to use it. They're going to use the industrial stuff, the barges, and I'm sure flatheads do too, but I'm kind of with Lyle on flatheads. If I'm flathead fishing, I'm looking for wood. I'm looking for whole trees, log jams, root wads. That's just kind of stuff they like, But blues, I think they're going to just be all over that river. They're going to be in the industrial stuff, the natural stuff, the rocks, just whatever's beneficial for them at that moment.
It seems like your channels and your flats were isolated to a lot of the same type of woody cover. In even in really shallow water, you'll be surprised. You may be in only 4 or 5 foot of water with some of the giant cat that'll hole up under that if they have good overhead covering, where they feel safe,
Yep.
Now, I do know down around the base of those wing dikes, you can always find a good flathead or two in there too.
Yep.
Can I touch on that base of that wing dike for just a second?
Wing dikes seem to be on again, off again, because flatheads can travel so much when they're kind of hanging out in the wide open areas I'll fish a series of wing dikes and for weeks in a row. And I've pulled up on wing dikes and thrown out and caught 7 flatheads in a row in a matter of an hour, and then the next day nothing. I'd go to 6 other wing dikes and you catch a couple dinkers and you catch a couple whatever. But as far as big fish, they seem to group up and they're really active for a short amount of time, and then either they move or whatever. But you can put it spot on the spot and generally find flatheads on wing dikes. What Steve's calling big rock dikes.
Go ahead, Lyle.
Off the end of them wing dikes, there is almost always a scour hole.
Yes.
And sometimes that scour hole is 20 or 30 feet deep, and some of them are 70 or 80 foot deep, but they almost always have a gradual way makes their way down to the bottom of it. And for me, to be successful, if there's nothing in the bottom of there's no sense of me fishing it. If there's a whole bunch in the bottom of it and there's not any up on the sides, I rarely catch very many fish out of those. The ones that are successful for me are the ones that has fish in the bottom and all the way up on the sides. And I put bait from the top all the way down to the bottom, and the ones that start biting that are active, that's where all the baits go.
Yep.
Epic, I had a question for you in chat.
Okay.
They asked, where would you put the James River as far as catfishing against the Mississippi? How would you rank the James River?
At one time, I would have rated it number 2. Now, I haven't fished it in 20 years, so I don't know what that population is. But with my experience, based on a lot of the rivers that I fished, the James River was like top notch as far as the short amount of time, moving from spot to spot and landing monsters. I mean, it was a close second to the Mississippi. But I don't think it is that way anymore for some reason, because I see a lot of people fishing the right stuff and the right things and, really working hard at it and really not catching 70s and 80s. But, I mean, there's a good amount of 30, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. So, I mean, shoot, as far as rankings goes, I mean, it depends on a person's point of view, really, and how they like to fish. But for me, I would have to say I would probably rate the James, as I see it now, probably number 3, because the Tennessee River has come up and the James seems to have slipped just a little bit, and the Mississippi has stayed at that pinnacle because it's a natural situation, natural river, and it has a mature population of fish. Even though it has a lot of commercial fishing, there's still that good production of those genes and those big shouldered fish. But the Tennessee has really come up in the last 25 years since they did some sort of, regulation on those pools. It's been pretty fantastic.
I have a question real quick, if you wouldn't mind. Kind of going back to that, Epic. Obviously there's a lot of big blue cats in the Mississippi, but do you think due to commercial fishing and a lot of people just keeping everything this and that, do you think Mississippi still has the potential for those world records, the 140s, 150s that, we know they can get that big? What's the Kerr Lake, the biggest one's 143 pounds.
Yep.
Why aren't we seeing them come out of the river like that very often? Is it just because people don't know how to fish for them, or they're just not there due to?
That's not it.
It's more. It is more difficult for a blue to get as robust, as round on the natural rivers, especially one that's fast. A lot of the fish that I catch are a lot of the bigger fish are sometimes longer than the world record, but fall short by 15, 20 pounds as far as girth goes. If you, I mean, girth on like the Kerr Lake, I mean, that thing is, what was it, like 56 inches around or something crazy like that, and maybe it was a little over, and I don't have the exact specs memorized, but like I've caught fish that are 63, 64, 65 inches long, but their girth is only 44, 45. You know, I've caught some shorter fish that, you know, still had 44, 45, 46 inch girth. But, you know, those super long fish on the Mississippi they're tremendous. They're, you know, 5'4", 5'5", you know, and their heads are huge. I mean, just these gigantic heads, you know, you can about throw a soccer ball in their mouth, but they just don't have that slower water and that easy lifestyle.
All
What do you
right.
think, Lyle?
I tell you, first off, I would like to go back to the way that they rated these rivers, and in my opinion, the Mississippi River will never be surpassed by any other river system. It's always going to be the greatest river system in the United States. Number two will always be the Missouri River. The Tennessee River is number three, and the rest of them fall in there somewhere behind, just because of what they are and what they've always been. And as far as the bigger fish coming out of the rivers, a few years ago, Missouri Department of Conservation done a survey, and I worked pretty close with them guys, and they caught several new world records out of the Mississippi and the Missouri River both. But they shocked them to get them up. It's not that they're not there. People just haven't had the equipment, knowledge to get them in and out. The other thing is, there's also some commercial guys down around Memphis area that catches several new records every year, but they do not let that out because they don't want people down there catching those fish that they're trying to sell for profit.
Yep.
And that's a fact. It just is a fact, whether you want to believe it or not.
Yep.
But they catch new records commercially all the time. But they don't want people in there fishing for those fish, because if they're that big, they want to harvest them, cut them up, and sell them by the pound, or find a pay late guy that'll give them $8-9 a pound for them, which is definitely not what you should do with big fish, but it happens more than you think.
It damn sure does.
Lyle, thanks for bringing the question up. That was a question I was waiting to ask. Rate the top 4 rivers in the United States, being the Potomac, the James, the Tennessee, the Mississippi, and the Missouri.
Well, like I say, I go with the Mississippi, the Missouri, the Tennessee, and the others will fall in somewhere there behind. I would love to fish the Potomac River. I think it's because I know a lot of people that live out there, and I'd like to fish with those guys. The James River would be after that somewhere, but the Tennessee River, it's never showed me the quality fish that the Mississippi and the Missouri's got, not consistently.
Steve Adams.
I could have fished anywhere in the world I wanted to fish throughout most of my adult life, but I don't care about fishing anywhere but Mississippi. Now, I'd like to fish with other people, but it's not because of the river they fish on. It's just to meet and go and fish with other people. The Mississippi is the only river I have ever cared about fishing, and still, at 74 years old, I still don't have the desire to fish any other river. But
And what about you, Danny?
I'd rather fish. I'd like to fish with other people.
What about Danny? Well, I've fished the Mississippi River for over 40 years now. It's always going to be number one to me because of that. Now, does that not mean that I wouldn't like to check out some of the? I mean, Potomac, the thing about Potomac is numbers. If you want to go catch a lot of fish, yeah, Potomac is good. Tennessee River is freaking awesome for that. But, I mean, the biggest fish, I think, when it's all said and done, is going to be out of the Mississippi River. I mean, the world record is out of Kerr Lake, correct? Out of a lake.
Yes.
I personally don't know, but what is the record fish worldwide that came out of a river? That's what I'd like to know. And what river was it?
I
Mississippi.
believe the Illinois state record for blues are 124.
Yeah. See, I want to make sure. I want to say, what's the record for that river? What's the record for the Potomac? What's the record for the Tennessee? What's the record for the Mississippi? And see where they stack up there. We know
I do
per lake,
believe
but we're not talking about lakes. We're talking about rivers.
2 previous world records came out of the Mississippi around Alton.
Yeah.
And Parker, numerous unregistered world records.
Absolutely.
Numerous.
Yeah.
so. If we was going to go with unregistered, unnumerous world Illinois state records, I would say Epic would have 4 of them in 3 of his videos that he's caught.
Yeah.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to do another one, which we had another, which would have definitely been the world record at the time. I mean, hands down, and definitely the state record at the time. But I don't really care about records because, you know, Illinois says you got to kill the fish, and I said that's all right. We'll just let it go. And but the thing about it is, when you get so many fish that are close to the world record, and trust me, there's lots of them. You know, maybe not the 143-pound record because that kind of put it a big reach away from 121 from the old Texoma record to the 124 pounds right there at basically on the Mississippi. Then all of a sudden it jumped another little bit, and then bam, it's at 143 pounds. But the Mississippi's got the length, they've got the age, they've got the genetics, and the only problem is those things are more like there's a difference between a power lifter and an actual athlete or a bodybuilder. You can get a big puffy bodybuilder, but they're not really athletes. You know, Arnold Schwarzenegger could lift a lot, but the power lifter didn't look anything, and you know, wasn't all blown up and impressive. Beat him in a heartbeat as far as that. So body style matters. So body style, when you're living in a river and you've got to work for a living, you're going to be a little bit leaner than those big lake fish are. Now, I'm not complaining about lake fish either, because if I was an actual record hunter, I'd be fishing a big lake like Kurt.
What about you, Fishing in Freedom?
As far as ranking the rivers, I couldn't I couldn't really give an educated opinion on it because I haven't fished those other rivers. All I can go by is what I've done is fish the Mississippi since I was a kid, just because I lived 20 minutes from it, and so I couldn't really give an unbiased opinion because I just love the Mississippi. It's my favorite river and always will be. But I would love to fish those other rivers just to. But I really still feel like the Mississippi is the king of rivers in the U.S. just because the sheer size of it. It's longer, wider, and most of these other rivers that people love to fish dump into the Mississippi, and it just has the potential for fish. I just don't feel like the other rivers have a potential for consistently anyway. The biomass of that river is enormous compared to some of these others. And the feed and the bait and the shad and all the other things they have to eat, there's just so much more of it in that river that, to me, it's just always going to be the king.
Apache, I don't know where you're getting your information, but that's wrong.
Yeah, that's wrong. Yeah, because the Illinois state record is 124 coming out of Mississippi.
Yeah, Louisiana's 112 coming out of Mississippi. Yep.
We're the guy over at the Bad and he had one on a blue that was 130 pounds.
What's
They
that
caught it
record?
over at the Badger. I don't know what that is.
What?
Now, as long as we're talking about the Mississippi River, we all have to remember that people fish for different reasons. Now, one thing that some people are going to put on their scale is how beautiful it is. Now, some of the Mississippi River is pretty beautiful, but some of it's pretty ugly. I mean, the area I fish is industrial. I've been on lots of rivers that look better and are more pleasurable to fish. You don't have, barge after barge. You don't have all this crazy stuff flying at you in 30, foot long trees. They're spilling through the dam and going to crush you and all that stupid stuff. The Tennessee is beautiful. I mean, it is beautiful. Yeah, they got a few pleasure boats. They got a few whatever. But if you get off in some of those tributaries where, it's just incredible. The upper Mississippi River that doesn't have blues is absolutely
Where's
beautiful.
that clicking
But-
sound coming from?
So, I mean,
Smell like
all of
somebody's
us are
frying
used to
bacon.
this hard, gritty, industrial, rough, and that's what we end up loving. I love it.
Somebody's frying bacon.
I like bacon.
Sound coming from?
Bacon.
Phil, what would your rankings be?
Whew, I'm fixing to make some people mad. Tell you right now.
Yeah.
Fixing to make some people mad. My top 3 rivers are all in the state I live in. I'll tell you that right now. Mississippi is number 1. The Atchafalaya River, which is right here by my house, which is where I fish most of my tournament. Okay, yeah, he got me unmuted. That's
Sorry.
number 2. And then the Ouachita River in north and northwest Louisiana, that's number 3. Any other river in the country falls behind those 3, in my opinion. There's bigger fish that come out of those 3 rivers than anywhere else.
I've fished the Ouachita before.
You know where the Ouachita River's at, and I say that because of the massive yellowcat that are in that river.
That's what we were fishing
Massive
for.
ones. That's where the state record comes out of, 97 pounds.
I just did it one day.
Yeah.
Hey, Phil,
Yo.
you might want to step back out and come back in because that's where the cracking sound's coming from.
Oh, it's coming from me?
Yeah, because when I muted you, it quit.
All right, well, hang on.
And what about you, Rustic?
Nope.
Oh, he's off screen.
No.
Okay,
What was
I
the
think
question again?
He's sticking his fingers in that crap.
What? Rate your top 4 rivers in the United States.
And that's for me.
That I would like to fish.
Yeah.
I fished out the Colorado River. I've caught some pretty good sized catfish out there. They got a lot of channel cats in there, and that's basically all I caught. But I caught some nice ones out of there, and that current's moving about almost fast as the Mississippi River. And you never know about that river. It goes up high real fast. I mean, or it goes down real fast. But I think the Mississippi would be my number 1. Then I like the Tennessee River. And I like to fish the Ohio. I haven't fished that one yet. I want to fish the Ohio River.
And you, Epic?
Well, I like the main Mississippi River, of course. And then I'd say my second is going to be the James, and there's a reason for that. I like fishing sunken ships, and the James has a bunch of them that are like completely all the way back from the Revolutionary War. It's a relatively short river, so if I, drive 12 hours out there, I'm going to go get bait. I'm going to be on fish in 35, 40 minutes to an hour. As where at Tennessee, probably the same thing. So the James and the Tennessee right now are pretty much, so I got the Mississippi, the James, Tennessee running neck and neck. I do like, I like the Coosa River. It's a beautiful river. There's actually some really nice high bluffs. I like the Alabama River. I like, jeepers. The list goes on, but I don't really have favorites past about number 3. I've caught big fish in other places, but to be able to consistently catch big fish in other places is something that's a little bit more difficult. If I want to catch fish consistently, the biggest I can find, I'm going to go with the Mississippi. Second, I'm going to go to the James because I know I can target some of these big ships. I know I can go to those big deep holes. I know that, I can, I don't even have to throw a bait net now. I can just get a cast, a gill net. I don't even have to throw a cast net. So I did enjoy the Potomac when I went out there and fished with Haz and Brian B and Fishing Magician. I did enjoy it. But would I go there? Yeah, I would probably go there because I think it can be done. I would want more than an afternoon to try to find big fish, though. You know, I mean, Fishing Magician showed me that the upper Potomac has got a lot of promise. It looks great for big flatheads, and if you could literally put a boat on it, I think it would be one of the most fantastic areas that a guy's ever seen. They have these gigantic dump truck sized rocks, and then they have a few pass-throughs, and then it'll be 40, 50 foot deep, and you can almost cast across the thing. It's like in this gorge canyon. It's got good current. Evidently, it's got good fish. Fished it one time. We caught a pretty big flathead and 2 pretty darn big giant blues. So, I mean, there's a lot of rivers that have some, and matter of fact, I've talked to people that kayak in the upper stretch, and in the upper stretch, it sounds even crazier than where Fishing Magician and I fished. You know, I'm not a fan of placid, beautiful rivers unless it's right next to me. I'm not really into driving to one because it's pretty. I want to see something rough and tumble, and I want to see something that's dangerous, and I want to see big fish.
Well, the Potomac is going to get there. It's just not there yet.
And what about you? What about you, Parker?
Big fish home.
You're muted, Jerry. You're muted.
Unmute yourself, Jerry.
There you go.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. On Mississippi, always give me my number one. I fished in Missouri. I love fishing Missouri. I like to fish in the Cumberland River too. I like fishing the Cumberland, and then I worked up in Iowa for a while, and I did a lot of fishing on the Des Moines River, and I caught some big flathead out of the Des Moines River. But I mean, there's a long list, but I definitely would love to get on the Potomac or the James someday and fish up there just for the sheer numbers of that 20 to 50 pound fish you can catch, you know.
All right. There's a question in chat for the panel. If you could choose one bait fish to fish the Mississippi for the rest of your life, what would it be? Parker?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Because there have been so many days I've had carp, shad, skipjack, and it'll be that one that constantly produces, but then a couple days later it'll go, and I won't touch that bait. I'm gonna go with big. That's my go-to. Yes, definitely killing her, but
Did we? Oh, we lost Rustic. Okay. What about you, Epic?
You have to unmute yourself, Tim.
Did you ask if I can only use one bait the rest of my life? What would I use?
Yes.
Can I put a size on it?
Hey,
Because if I'm going to pick one bait that I could use the rest of my life, it would be moon eye about that big. Moon eye, gold eye, whatever you want to call them, but about that big around. And when I get those, look out. They're very versatile. I can catch lots of flatheads and blues on moon eye, where you can't always catch. You can catch them on shad, but you can't always catch them on shad. You can catch blues on almost anything when they're active, but when they're inactive, it seems that moon eye or gold eye, at least in the area that I fish, works probably as good, if not better, than the rest. And there is no and to it. It's just I'd pick moon eye. I've just had too much history with it.
Epic, I wouldn't expect you to go anything smaller than what you just showed.
Yeah, and you know what? I've caught 100-pound fish on small baits before. I'm telling you, we pulled up to a spot once and caught 200-pound fish on strips of Asian carp that long and probably about as big around as a hot dog. But it has never performed well consistently. When they're on and they're in there and they're coming to get you, they're coming to get those and rip the rods down. You could have almost anything, but it's that consistent bite.
And what about you, Rustic? One bait for the rest of your life on the Mississippi.
Moon eye.
Creole?
Moon eye is good, excellent bait. I mean, if that was all I had to fish with, that'd be moon eye right there.
That shocks me. I really thought that he would say skipjack.
Just because I catch a lot of them, don't mean that'd be my favorite bait. I like moon eye and I catch them, but when I do catch them, that's what I use. It's just something about that moon eye. I get better hits with that moon eye, but that's all I had to use. My second choice would be skipjack all the way, and I think chicken will be third. I said it. Be the first one to say it.
Chicken's not a fish. You know that, right?
No, but it's
Chicken is not a bait because
Chicken is
no
not a fish.
chicken fish in the Mississippi River or any other river.
I thought the question was what bait fish would you choose if you had to
one
pick
bait
one?
fish for the rest of your life to fish
Yeah.
the Mississippi.
Okay, chicken ain't a fish.
Creole?
Yeah.
Well, mine's easy. Mine is a slicker. That is hands down favorite bait, and that's for blues and big yellowcat. Doesn't matter. Cut slickers, absolute best bait for us year round.
Now we know you're
What is
Cajun, so you're going to have to explain to the boys what a slicker is.
Skipjack.
Thank you.
Skipjack. Yep.
I didn't know what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
So
I never heard. I fished for them forever, and I never heard it called that. That's new to me. I'll start using that term. See if anybody knows what I'm talking about.
Please don't.
make it
Please
catch on.
don't.
Creole, the term slicker is a big yellow rain suit up where we live.
Yeah.
Hey, we got different names for everything. You know that.
Yep,
Yeah,
they do. I used to hang down in Louisiana a lot. They call crappie sac-a-line and everything else. But my favorite, if I had to pick one bait fish, now I love using skipjack because I get consistent bites on it and I get bigger fish, especially a skipjack head. Favorite bait of all time is skipjack head. That being said, if I have to pick one bait, I'm going to go with shad because here's the thing. I can get shad on a consistent basis on the river pretty much around the year, where all those other baits I can't. So if I got to fish with one bait, I'm going with the one that I know I can get pretty much year round, and that's the shad.
What about you, Freedom?
It would be a toss between shad and moon eye, but if I could get them all the time, it would definitely be moon eye.
Steve?
I reckon I would be positively a yellow raincoat.
The slicker, huh?
He's a slicker.
And you know what, everybody? I would be agreeing with Creole and Steve if I could get skipjack up here with any sort of consistency. I mean, I might do 20 trips and only get skipjack, and I might only get 2 of them. And sometimes that's the ticket. I mean, sometimes it is.
Well, I will say this about the moon eye. I've only caught moon eye 2 times. As many years I've been on that river, I've only caught it 2 times. And I caught fish off of the 7, 8, 10 moon eyes. I guess I caught 7, 8, 10 fish off of those, cut up moon eyes. Well, some of them I fish live. But I couldn't say moon eye because I had never used them but twice in my life. But the yellow raincoats work good.
Mm-hmm.
And what about you, Lyle?
Hands down, moon eye. Greatest bait in the world for river fish. You can't always get them, but when you can get them, just like that, cut the tail off of them, use them whole.
Yeah.
I will agree with all this. I will say I agree with all those baits. but there's one bait that I can get consistently out of the Mississippi that I'd use for bait the rest of my life, and that's big head carp.
Yeah. Makes pretty good bait.
They're bloody.
Catfish love them. It's
Hey,
a hard
Jeremy.
bait to come off the hook.
Jeremy, you got to tell me what Lyle said because all I saw was this. And
Yeah,
I don't know what he said.
Big moon eye.
Big moon eye.
That big.
I would have to go with either the big head carp or the Asian carp.
Yep. And you know what? I think all of us have caught big fish on all 3 or 4 of those baits that we mentioned. I don't remember exactly what Jerry said, but I mean, shoot, catch giant blues on suckers. We catch them on, slicker. We catch. See, I'm learning, Jerry. Sorry, Creel, Jeremy. We catch them on slicker. We catch them on big moon eye or gold eye, Asian carp, big head silvers, and shad. I mean, and yeah. I didn't hear catalpa worms. I didn't hear chicken livers, and I didn't hear hot dogs. So thank you.
Mark, catfish and crappie. Rustic did mention chicken, but we corrected him. It wasn't the fish.
Yeah, but that was like an afterthought. I didn't even hear that.
No, Rustic said he used chicken, but we told him chicken don't swim, so that ain't a bait fish.
I tell you, be honest with you, one reason I didn't say chicken is because of flatheads. If I could only pick one bait, I want something that's going to pull double duty. I still want to be able to catch flatheads, and I can do that on moon eye.
Yep.
Yeah, you do that on big head carp too.
Yeah, one of the biggest flatheads I've ever seen come out of the Mississippi was on a big chunk of cut Asian carp.
Yeah.
I caught my biggest flathead. I was taking my boat right up there. Richard, you know where the boat ramp is there in New Madrid. At that little island upstream. I put my boat in there and started upstream, and an Asian carp jumped into the boat, flopping around. I pulled up on that island, and tied my boat up, cut a chunk of that carp off, threw it out there, and before it hit bottom, I had that huge flathead on there. And I mean, it didn't even make it to the bottom, and that rod bent over and took off.
Yep.
Asian carp have become a natural bait for catfish.
Yep.
There's been studies done. They eat them all the time, year round. But for me, they work better. In the hotter the water is, the better
I have
they
a
work.
question for the panel.
I agree with you on that, Lyle.
Maybe
All right,
I thought everybody was just waiting because I can't hear Lyle. Sorry about that.
No, you're right, Lyle. I don't do great on them in cold weather. In the summertime, hot summertime, I do a lot better.
Hotter the better.
Yeah, I know. Like everybody knows that I fish with skipjack and a lot of them, and I see this old man up there all the time, every year. He got a big old cooler, and he catches nothing. He snags nothing but Asian carp. He'll lay them a certain way on their sides in the cooler and put them in there. And I said, how come you just don't throw them in there? You got to lay them just a certain way. He goes, I want all the blood to run to one side. You cut that one side off, it's pure blood. Throw it out there, and he tears some catfish up with it, buddy.
Yeah, it's like Hagen Grubbs did a real good video about that. That's how he puts up his skipjack. He'll lay them all back down in the cooler, layer ice, lay them back down so all that blood goes down around the spine. And when you cut them little steaks off the back, it's real good and bloody and puts out a little more scent.
And it releases slower.
Yep.
That's what I do with mine. But I don't do that until I get I can kill them. Then I stand the bags up with the bags are back.
Okay, Epic, what is your question for the panel?
Me? All right. So if you guys are this is for the bank fishermen. Now, since you're bank fishing, do you guys look at maps, or you just been doing it so long you know where to go? Do you look at topographic maps and try to get where that main channel swings in towards the bank and see where you can go from there?
Before I ever go to a bank spot, I get on Navionics and Google Earth. And I want there to be a reason I'm going to that spot. I hate just going to a spot because it's there and not knowing what's in the water, because I feel like I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
I look for anywhere the channel cuts close to the bank, and I'm looking for any kind of structure that I think I can hit from the bank, whether it be a current seam, a hump, a trough, a hole.
Yep.
From being a bank fisherman, that revetment's one of my best friends, because I feel like it's Creole. I've heard you talk about it. It's a lot of scour holes and stuff under that matted revetment.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't show you that on maps, but it shows you where the revetment is, and more times than not, it's eat out from underneath it. So yeah, I look at maps. I look at Navionics a lot, and yeah, I want there to be a reason I'm going fishing in that spot.
And the reason I ask this is there's so many boat ramp type areas on the Mississippi up in my stretch. There is nothing but carp, gar, and bullhead water. And I see a lot of people being frustrated because they try to go down to the bank at, say, whatever park, and it's so far off the main channel that they don't know that the only thing they really got a shot at is gar, carp, bullhead, stuff like that, because it's just so far away. So obviously Jerry he's main channel, your main channel, and for the rest of the bank guys, how are you focusing on it?
Well, the way I do it, I fished out of a boat for 50 some years, and when I park the boat, I just go to the places that I can access that I caught fish from the boat. And that's because I ain't been doing this bank fishing for just a few months, I've always been a boat guy.
Well, Tim, if it makes you feel any better, I caught that one on Moon Eye.
There you go.
Okay?
Yeah.
That one was on Moon Eye, Tim.
Me, I don't use avionics for the Mississippi River because that river rises and falls, especially we get our rains from up north and stuff. And that river tanks all the time because the barges and the washing the banks out. And that river's changing all the time. And so I just know, I fished that river since I was 13 years old, and I just know a lot of places to go where there's deep holes because the barges keep the tugboats on the barges keep them brushed out. And I know where the currents keep it flushed out around the dikes and stuff like that. So, I just know where the very good spots are. And then hanging with Danny, and I found out that, hey, I've never fished that side of the river before. I've always fished down south.
Don't blame nothing on me.
And so he's trying to teach me show me where the good bar and stuff like that is. And like I said, I've never fished blues. I've never set up for blues. I've always set up for cats. But my favorite place to fish on the river is just off where the water's running, and it's washed out a hole around the corner of it. Just fish right in there.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Danny?
Do what?
Same question that Epic asked.
What was that?
Real quick, Danny, all I said was, how do you guys go about figuring out where you want to go bank fishing? Is it something you just always done for a long time, or do you use maps or Navionics or whatever to go find new stuff?
See, I'm 56 years old, and I know I'm not as old as Coach, and he knows a lot more than I do. But, man, I grew up on this river. Everything that I do is just based off of 40 years of coming over here, fishing different spots. And, you got your favorite holes, and you know what time of year those are going to produce, whatever. I just get on the river and have fun,
Yeah.
All that arguing and stuff, everything, to me, it's just hilarious sometimes because you could take 100 guys, okay, and have them fish the same stretch of river, and you're going to get 100 different answers from those guys. What you got to do is you write all those down and you find the ones that match and go with that because they're consistent about their opinions. And the ones that are lowest ranked, you figure, okay, you're an idiot that just that happened that day, and you're thinking that's the gospel. But if you'll ask 100 people the same questions about different types of bait, different areas and stuff. You find the ones that are most common answers, put those together, and that's the rules I live by right there. Plus my own experience mixed in with that.
Well, that's a good way of really looking at it. And I mean, really, that's the scientific method that everybody should be really looking at, because just because you went to the river once and caught some big fish one time doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to reproduce it. But if you
Right.
can reproduce things, constantly over and over, because, you see Jeremy do it, you see, Parker Pursuits do it, you see Lyle, even though he can't talk right now, at least in my phone, Steve Adams, everybody's experience really counts as long as they've been doing it enough, and
Right.
had enough success.
But see, like that's the thing with since hooking up with the guys here in the catfish community, you go through and you listen to them giving you advice. You will find a lot of spaces in there where they're saying the exact same thing. That's what you need to go with. When you've got several guys saying the same thing, then you might get one oddball thing out of the corner that you think, where did that come from, left field? And you go try it, and it may work for you. But what will work for you is what consistently works for the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Hey, Parker.
All right, going back.
Can I get you to fix your mic? You're popping.
All right, going back to that bank thing, it's all going to depend for me the time of the year, the river stage. Because when the river is high, I'm looking for more of a slack water. I like getting around ahead of those tributaries, and sometimes I'll get right in behind those wing dikes when it's extreme high water. But I've had really good luck in high water on the upstream side of wing dike, closer to the bank. I've had really when they're actively feeding. And it also goes back to what species are you targeting. I mean, because your blues and your flats, yes, they'll be in the same areas sometimes, but your flatheads are more of a calmer water type fish with moderate current, where your blues like to get into like extreme heavy current.
Yep.
So it goes back to and if I'm on the bank, I like to find the marker buoys in the river and to get on the nearest channel as I can if I'm targeting blues. And going back to like Fishing Freedom was saying, if I'm targeting flatheads, I'm looking for that woody cover. I'm looking for those steep cut banks. I like those tributaries when I'm flathead fishing. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff goes into play depending on the time of the year, river stage. But like Danny was saying, listen to these guys and just what everybody says over and over, you'll learn a lot. Because in the spring of the year, when the river floods around here, you can get into these flooded farm fields in 4 to 5 foot of water and catch some giant fish. So it just makes a big difference at the time of the year.
Jeremy's tournament cast put in there. Frozen bait is a no in my opinion. Hey, if you can get fresh bait, I say get it. That's the best you can get, the fresh. But if you're just going out for a 2 or 3 hour fish trip, you want to fish in 3 hours, you got some frozen skipjack. That stuff's going to thaw out in the water, and it's going to thaw out real slow and put the oils out down through there. I mean, I've caught plenty of fish on frozen stuff, but if you can get the fresh, you go out and catch some fresh bait right then, I'd say go for it, because that's the best you get.
Now, as far as me fishing the Mississippi, I don't use Navionics and I don't use Google Earth. I'd rather read the river for the current seams and for those barge pilings that are out there in the water deep enough, because I know most of the ones that I fish around have holes in the bottom where catfish like to go up and hang up in there and just hold up. I'll fish the seams, I fish those barge pilings, and I'll reach out to the ledges as far as I can get the fish. I do the drop-offs, ledges, flats, and I look for the seams. Because I know if I can find the seam and I can reach it, there's bait there in the seams that I can catch the catfish when they go up to feed. I'd rather read the river instead of trying to use avionics, which always keeps asking me to attach a boat to it. But I've had better luck reading the rivers than Mississippi where I go, because I go up to Alton, I go to the Chain of Rocks, and I go down by the Kaskaskia in the Mississippi where they both come out. And after talking with Epic about the mouth of the Mississippi and Kaskaskia, I know how to fish that a lot better without using avionics. And just by reading the currents, how they both come together. But that's how I do it from the bank.
And I expected that answer out of old school Epic. I mean, sorry, well, just like I would say, is Avid doing that sort of old school thing like most of you guys are going to do. I mean, Jerry's going to do the same thing. Steve Adams definitely. I mean, they're going to rely on their past and they're going to keep doing it. And Navionics is probably more of a young guy's thing if you're just starting out and you don't know much about the river.
I got a question for you guys. Epic said earlier that I'll go out there with 20-pound test fishing line. I'll caught some nice fish on 15-pound, but it's way much drag. What do you guys prefer to use for your catfish as far as pounding?
Well,
Yeah, I'll go first. I use a minimum of 40, and it's just because with I've just been in situations because I'm not just fishing one spot. Usually when I go, I'm fishing multiple spots, and some of them are going to be rocky. Some of them are going to have metal down there. Some of them are going to be sunken barges, boats, things like that. So I use a minimum of 40, and usually I don't even like to throw 40 into the stuff. I like to throw 40 into the open water. Usually my minimum is 50, and I use 80-pound leaders and up to 100-pound test leaders exclusively, because I've just been on too many big fish that end up either the line breaks or it's close to breaking. And when I used to guide, and just say if your drag isn't quite working right, you might just get them ripped right off the boat. And how would you like to have one of those in your hands with 20-pound tests? It just like you snap like that. And now if I fished every day again, I'd probably go with lighter line because I could afford a few more mishaps. But since I don't get that much time to fish, I want to guarantee to get fish to the boat. 50-pound test is miserable when you get it snagged, though.
Yeah.
Lyle, what about you?
For line,
Yes.
80-pound braid. I'd never use monofilament for anything other than leader line. It goes through the water too much faster and easier. I do a lot of bumping. You have to use it for bumping just specifically because it's so sensitive. And if you guys don't think that braid is as tough on rocks and structure as monofilament, get you some of the stuff that I use. That suffix is coated with something. I don't know what it is, but I've been using it for years, and I break less it than I ever did mono. And I use 80-pound that and 65-pound mono leaders.
Parker?
Usually 40-pound is about where I use most of the time, 40-pound. And usually I go with a 60 to 80-pound leader. It's usually what I use most of the time. And I used braid for a while, and I had some bad luck, but I talked to Lyle a few days ago when a few of us were chatting. I'm going to try some of that suffix on a reel and see how I like it this year.
Creole?
On my anchoring rods, I use either 40-pound suffix mono or 50-pound Andy mono on my reels. My leaders are 80-pound minimum on my leaders. Some of them are 150 pound, depending on what I'm doing. Bumping rod, I'm like Lyle, suffix 832 braid on my bumping reels.
Danny?
On my spinning reels, I have 50-pound braid. On my bait casters, I'm running 30-pound mono, and I know that 30-pound seems a little light, but I fish from the bank. I'm not in a boat. here's the thing. When you're in a boat, you get to those spots. You're casting just out a little ways, and you're right there on those hot spots. I've got to reach them from the bank, which means unfortunately I have to have a little bit more line, which means I've got to go lighter on the mono. I go 30 pound because I've got to get it way out there. I'm not in the boat. And see, that's something you guys got to factor into those answers too. Is boat fishing and bank fishing are two sides of the same coin. And us guys on the bank, we can't get out there to those spots. Sometimes, if you load up a bait casting reel with a 50-pound braid, which is not wrong. I mean, that's what you need for these fish, but it's not feasible for us because we can't get the distance out there with that little bit of line on those reels most of the time. Or not the ones I'm using anyway. I need better reels, and that would solve that problem. But some of us just got to go with what we can get. Because it's all at the end of the day, guys. At the end of the day, to me, it's all about fishing, and my favorite place to do it is the Mississippi River. That's what my answer to everything you've said is.
What about you, Freedom?
Yeah, I use a 30-pound big game main line and a 50-pound big game leader. For the same reason, just trying to get more on the spool because I got to cast so far. And, if you break off 2-3 times with 40, 50-pound line, you ain't left with much on a little bait caster,
Yeah, you have to keep respooling. Steve Adams?
I use 40-pound mono, and I don't use I use what's called a coach's rig, and it doesn't require a leader and all that. 40-pound mono.
I use 40-pound braid, which is a 12 strand, which I got from Bluff City Outdoors. I don't remember the name of the company that made it. I use a 17-pound Cajun line, which is super strong for a leader. Now, my bait caster has a Whisker Secret 30-pound mono that's a super thin mono that's really strong that I haven't found any other monofilament besides the Cajun line that's that strong. So, what would you rather prefer? Holes, sunken barges, chips, debris, or man-made underwater objects to fish on the Mississippi?
I think Solo, he said coach's rig.
Tell him to go on my website. He can see what it is. It's the title of the video is Better Than a Three-Way Rig.
What about you, Lau?
What was the question again? I'm sorry. There was some.
Holes, barges, sunken ships, man-made debris, or brush piles?
Wood is my favorite. Wood is my favorite, but I'm not so much on sunken barges as I am an old barge that's been sitting there for years and years and years, and I like to go above it and float bait down underneath of it. I really like doing that because nothing new is going to attract fish right off, but if it's been there for a long time, it's a big fish attractant. I also like to fish underneath dams really well. Certain times of year. Now, right now, I wouldn't be underneath a dam in this cold weather, but when it warms up and the water temperature gets 50, 60 degrees, that's one of my favorite places to fish is underneath a dam. But wood is my number one favorite place.
What about you, Steve?
I don't know. I've never fished a sunken ship. I wish I could find one. I'd try to metal detect around it if I could.
Finding a sunken ship in the middle of the river, Mississippi, with a metal detector, that'd be something else.
I damn sure would like to try it one just once. No, I never. Now, when I flathead fished, I like fishing around the woods and stuff, but I guess points. I reckon points and whatever that turns out to be whatever's down there is whatever's down there. But I've never fished any of that kind of stuff other than for flathead, and that's always wood, that type of situation. I don't know any sunken ships.
Hey, Parker, can I get you to go out and come back in? You're popping again.
Well, hey, I gotta get off here because I gotta go and work here in about 2 hours. I gotta
Oh,
head
boy.
in, so I'm gonna try to get a quick little nap in.
Thank you, Parker.
You want to answer that
Jerry.
question real quick?
See you, Jerry.
Appreciate y'all having me.
All right, you're welcome. You're more than welcome up here, bud.
You want my answer for that one?
Yeah.
I will narrow it down even to finer point. If you're asking my favorite to fish, my favorite to fish is a deep hole that's coming off of a shallow flat, or like a shallow flat that drops off into a deep hole on a really hot summer night. Because the fish will come up out of that deep hole and they'll chase the bait fish up in that shallow flat. You throw in that shallow flat and let it drift off to the edge of that deep hole on a hot summer night. That's where the fish are coming up. They're holding next to that hole and coming up in that shallow to feed on that bait. That is my favorite time to fish for them. On if you're going to put me on a certain structure that I got to have, that's going to be a shallow flat dropping off into a deep hole on a hot summer night.
Freedom.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the deep holes, just because I like to drop a bait down in the deepest part, one up on the ledge, and then one up on the top of it, because a lot of times they'll be either hanging out down low, they'll be hanging out on the ledge or in the shallows. You're just kind of covering 3 different layers of water there. I've never got to fish any sunken barges or anything like that. I'd like to. I bet you crack some huge flatheads out of them old barges, man. But like Lyle, a barge has been sitting for a while, even for a week or two. I've fished in front of them and floated bait down underneath them and been pretty successful. And anytime you can find a tree, an old tree trunk or a fruit ball or something, I like to fish on that.
Creel?
Well, I'm gonna say deep holes because where there's a deep hole, that means there's a big ledge. I'm a big fan of really tall, steep ledges. The steeper, the better. 100% of my fish over 40 pounds have been caught on big ledges. So that's of course that's my answer. Is the bigger the ledge, the better.
Epic.
All right.
I knew this you'd love this one.
This is kind of complicated, but if I'm fishing flatheads, my favorite thing for gigantic flatheads is of course sunken ships, sunken barges, things like that. But they got to be in the right current. They can't be off of the main channel very far. There is some that I've found, but if it's slow water, it holds small flatheads. It doesn't hold giant flatheads. But some of the best sunken ships that I've ever fished, as long as they've got contact with that main channel somehow, or just off the main channel, I've caught probably the heaviest numbers of giant flatheads I've ever caught in all the other situations combined. Now, I've caught giant flatheads in pretty much every situation you could think of, but there's just something about those ships that are blocking current. They've got all those crevices, and maybe there's a spot underneath them where they can get into during the day. Now, I'm not saying sunken ships in 50 foot of water. I'm saying sunken ships in 10 to 30 foot of water at the most. And sometimes it's 10 on one side and 30 foot of water on the other side, or 20 foot of water on the other side. Now, but then I agree with Jeremy on the big holes. If I'm targeting big blue cats, I don't think it's as important to have those sunken ships, even though I've caught big blue cats on the James in those old clipper ships and those old, Revolutionary War, whatever. But I think that's more of the current because they don't seem to be as tight to them. I mean, sometimes I'll literally be seesawing line over the edge on the back side. So the current's washing this way. I'm in 12 foot of water or 15 foot of water, and I'll seesaw the line right over the edge, and that is the spot on the spot. Matter of fact, my next video, I think, is going to be when Sean catches a monster in that very scenario right in the middle of the day. And it was only about 9 foot of water, but it was where that barge was contacting the shore, breaking the current, and it was just off the back side where it goes straight down. Pretty cool. You know, but I do like I like trees and lay downs for flatheads. But blue cats, it's usually more open water, more fast current, and holes, ledges, things like that. Now, before I'm done, I got to ask Jeremy something because he's the first one I've ever heard talk about a 150-pound test on a leader. Mm-hmm. This is 100, and I can't even tie that overhand knot. I've got to crimp it with the saltwater stuff. How do you? I mean. Explain what you're doing with that 150 because I've got the no-knot Snell on this, if you see it, and I have to use super glue just to keep this thing from unraveling. I mean, this stuff is like freaking airplane wire.
I wish I had it in here with me to show you, but I'll take, and I don't use it very often. There's only certain situations I use it in. But what I'll do when I tie my no-knot Snell with that 150, I take a pair of needle nose and I crush the end of the very end of the line where it's the tag end. I crush it. I crush it to where it flares it out. And what that does when you make your no-knot Snell, it can't back out because where that line is crushed will stop it.
Gotcha.
It won't come back out. And believe it or not, you can tie a Palomar knot in a 150-pound test mono. You just gotta wet the bejesus out of it and be really careful and take your time. But you can do it.
Gotcha.
In fact, it's a 150-pound Andy that I use. Andy leader line.
Now, is it like 1.5 times as thick as this stuff?
I'll put it this way,
like
it's the
weed eater cord, huh?
Well, it's the roll I have. It's the exact diameter of the string on my weed eater. Yes, it's the same thing, I believe.
Pretty much. I've used this on my
thick.
weed eater because I've got a giant spool of it that I took to South America, and I've used it in emergency.
Yeah, it's really thick, and the only hooks I can use with that 150 is my big 12-aught hooks. The eye on a 10-aught hook is too small to pass that 150 in it twice to make the no-knot Snell. I have to use my 12s for that.
Yeah.
And what about you, Rustic?
I don't forgot what you asked now.
Holes, barges, sunken ships, man-made debris, or points or ledges on the Mississippi.
Oh yeah, I like to fish the deep holes around the points, but if I could find, like Lyle says, the brush piles, the log piles under the water, if I know they're there, I like to fish the up part where the flow's flowing into that log pile. That way, if the scent's running in there, if something's in there, it's going to come out of there and find that if it's hungry, and it's going to take it. But just finding them log piles, from the bank, it's pretty tough on Mississippi River.
I have a question in chat for the panel. If you could travel the world to catch any kind of catfish, which would it be? Rustic?
If I catch any kind of catfish, what's that? The Wales catfish? Ain't that the big one?
They have the Wells catfish in UK, I believe, and I believe that's where the Wells catfish is from.
Yeah,
I like to try for that because they said that's a battle if you get one of them.
Epic.
Oh, okay. You got me going on another one. I would have to say, I would love to catch a giant gooch. After Jeremy Wade caught one, I think they're the meanest. They're not the biggest, but they are the meanest looking catfish I've ever seen, hands down. But I don't think I want to go to India to do it. I don't think I want to deal with the crowds and all that stuff. I'd rather go to South America and target one of my favorite fish, which is pretty much like a blue. inhabits, and it is its scientific name is Brachyplatystoma philomosum, and we all know it by the name of Piraeba. And they get up to 7.5 to 8 foot long. They're extremely fast, extremely big. Get up to about, on average, 330 pounds for a big one, and some of them have been recorded to 400. Now, sometimes you got to go into tributaries, and sometimes it takes a while to find them. But if you can, it's one of the most crazy fights ever.
That'd be awesome.
Creel?
Just because they're such beautiful fish, I'd love to catch a red tail.
Red tail.
Love to catch a red tail.
Freedom?
Man, I'm kind of there with Epic on the same page. I would love to go catch one of those giant goons, just because it's like a flathead from your nightmares, man. This thing is giant. It's got fangs.
That's awesome.
I'm like him. I ain't going to India to do it. It would be more realistic for me to go to the Amazon and chase red tails.
Mr. Stone?
I'm hitting the Amazon, without a doubt. And going after, there's the red tail down there, and I can't remember the name of the other species down there, but it would be tough for me to split between those. I would love to go down there to the Amazon, float down there, and try for either one of those that I'd be happy. And I can't remember the name of the other one. It's on the tip of my tongue, but the red tail's in there, and there's another species in there that's gets up pretty good size. I mean, we're going for fish. I'm going for fish that I want to catch because of the characteristics, or the beautiful coloration, and, you know, and not just about size. I mean, if I want to go for the biggest fish, yeah, I'm going for the whales, absolutely. But to go on the Amazon and catch one of those red tails, there's some of those fish down there that are so different in the coloration and stuff, that would be cool.
Steve Adams?
I want to fish the mouth of the Amazon for about 15 or 20 minutes and then spend the rest of the week or 2 weeks at Rio de Janeiro at Carnival.
She's not even worried about the fish. She just wants to get down to Rio.
Uh-huh.
I ain't even got to make it all the way to the Amazon. I ain't just stop in Rio.
What about you, Lyle?
Red tail, without a doubt. They're the most beautiful catfish, in my opinion, of all of them. And I believe the other one that they have in the Amazon is Papillon.
That's it.
Those actually get bigger than the red tails, but the red tails are so beautiful that if I'm going to have a mount made out of one, take the measurements and spend the money to do that, let's get the good looking one.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what I'm after, the good looking one.
That's what I thought, Steve.
I would agree with Lyle and Rusty with the whales and the red tail, but I'd also have to go after a 500-pound grouper.
Well, I don't think I can handle up one of those. The way my shoulders are after all these surgeries, I'd have to have help with that, I believe. I don't think I could do it. But, you know, when you say you need help, I'm going to say, Jeremy, come help me reel this fish in. What's he going to do? Say, no, I can't do that.
Exactly.
You know Korea will be right there with you.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
I'll be with
Before
you.
you guys get too far away from this, okay? Lyle, you saw me struggling trying to remember the name of that fish, and you had it right there the whole time, and you didn't come and save me for nothing. I'll remember that, buddy.
I was just waiting my turn.
He's sitting up there in the top, in the center, going, I know the name of that fish. Let the idiot try to think of it.
I'm not sure I pronounced it right, but I'm close.
No,
Danny, I knew it too.
I said, why didn't you
but I
say
couldn't
it?
even hear what Lyle said. Probably a Jau.
That's two of them that had that fish. All right. I think there's a question in chat from Jeremy. Isn't the Mekong catfish a kind of rarest catfish to catch?
Yep.
They're hard to get.
But aren't those plankton feeders though? Or are they?
Vegetation feeders, but they will eat certain, almost like a carp bait They'll put out
yeah.
like a big foilie and stuff like that. They'll eat bread. They'll eat things like that. But yeah, they are
Right. Yeah. Okay. I knew it was something different about what they ate. That they're not going to go pack a big piece of carp or something.
Yeah, they're not a predator.
Right.
Right. The smaller cousins of it, and there's probably 20 species, but 3 main species in that same family that don't get quite as big. They are actual predators.
There's something I didn't know that Van just said in chat. They have red-tailed catfish in Florida.
Yep.
Yes, they do.
They do.
They have peacock bass in Florida too, but they're not as big as the ones in South America.
Yeah.
They got monkeys in Florida too. They got all kinds of stuff. Monkeys and freaking
boa constrictors
that are like 3 feet long in those canals down there. You got peacock bass. They got pretty much anything that we imported. It lives down in Florida.
Yeah, see, to me now, if I want to go after red tail, I want to go after it in the Amazon. Because, I mean, if you go get a Wells catfish and throw it in the swimming pool in the backyard and I go catch it, I'm like, big deal. I want to go where do they come from and go after them. You know, it's not just about the fish. It's not just about the fish. Right. It's about the area and going to a new place and checking it. It's all about the whole thing. All comes together with the fish. If you throw a Wells fish, yeah, go ahead.
Danny, I can tell you firsthand, you will not be disappointed if you ever get to go to the Amazon because it's like it's a different planet.
Yeah.
All the videos and stuff I've seen of people catching, like Jeremy Wade catching his fish in the Amazon, boy, that's what got me into hunting big cats and big fish here in the United States. I wish I could go over to Amazon to catch some of them fish.
Avid, yeah, that's my dream to go down there to peacock bass.
It's about 25% of how awesome it really is because it's the smells, it's the sounds, it's the crazy animal life, it's the people, it's the rivers and the roar of the river and all the different things. I mean, you just can't understand what it really is like just watching a video because I've never seen a video that came close to the real experience. You know, if I wouldn't have had kids and a wife, I would have never came home.
Epic.
If you go watch Steve Rennell on his show Meat Eater, he did like a 3-part series on that, man. And I tell you what, it was amazing some of the stuff he shows you on there.
Yeah, I've seen that one, the Meat Eater version of the Amazon fishing.
But I ain't eating no monkey.
I need to watch that.
Yeah, you got to.
I got another question in chat. This is down your alley. Has anyone in the panel heard of the rumors of sharks going into the Mississippi? And if so, would you target them if you had the chance?
Yes.
It's pretty well documented.
They've been documented as far north as Memphis.
Yeah, there's a guy in St. Louis. He caught a bull shark out of the Mississippi River that was 160 pounds.
I know they've been seen and found dead in Memphis.
Well, if you look it up, that bull shark was in Alton, Illinois. You can look it up, Google it.
So they've been a lot further than Memphis then.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
They had a manatee that 4 years ago now. Had a manatee in Memphis 4 years ago. They finally caught it, carried it back to the coast, and put it in one of those rehabilitated place, but it died.
Jeremy Tournament Cat, you're grasping at straws at that one. A blue will not eat a bull shark for lunch. A bull shark will eat that blue for lunch.
Yeah, I mean, usually every year there's probably half a dozen that get caught in my area. In fact, if I had my other phone, I could show you a picture of one right here that got caught in one of the spots that I actually catfish in. Usually that happens here when the river is really low during the summer. You'll catch a lot of, there's a lot of saltwater fish actually that come up as far as we are and further. I mean, in my area, there's been bull sharks, stingrays, speckled trout, blue crab, all of that comes up the river if it's low enough.
Yeah, I know down there, they tell you down there where you're at, if you clean your fish and stuff like that, do not clean them at the river's edge in the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the
you
bull
gotta be
sharks
careful
come up
just
and
in
grab
case. That's right.
Okay.
You catch them those hard heads and what is it? Them sail catfish.
Every now and then we'll catch one. Yeah, I've got I caught one during a tournament. In fact, I was fishing against Lyle in a challenge, and I actually caught one. I've caught, I don't know, 3 or 4 over the past few years. They don't, I mean, I'm not some real big ones. They're 3-4 pounds, but I've caught some.
I didn't know if they come up that far.
Yep. It's always during the middle of the summer when the river's low. But yeah, we have caught a few.
We're talking about the hardhead catfish. I hate those things.
Those gaff top, we call them.
Now the gaff ones are a whole different ball game.
Yeah, no, the gaff top, it looks like a little blue, except it's got really, really long whiskers.
Yep.
That's the one I'm talking about.
All right. One last question for the family. How would you suggest a beginner catfisherman learn how to fish the Mississippi? Lyle?
Again, I would go back to go with somebody with a lot of experience on that river to start with and learn as much as you can, whether it be from the bank or a boat, because you're going to learn some things that you'll need to know further on down the line, or maybe for the rest of your life, that will serve you well. You could go with Tim or Jeremy or any of these guys up here on this panel that's fished it a lot, and pay attention to what they're doing and do what they do, and you will catch fish, and then start experimenting with things that works out. But I'm a firm believer that river bears watching, and unless you go with somebody with experience, you will surely fail. And you need to go with fishes with as many people and learn as much from each one as you can, and you'll do fine.
Steve Adams?
I'd probably second what Lyle said.
Can I get someone in the chat to post Panfish Weekly's link in chat, please? Danny?
Yeah, like Lyle said, I mean, get with somebody that knows what's going on. Like, even for instance, tonight, I was wanting to fish on the main river tonight while we were doing this, but it's got so much trash floating down right now, it's unfishable. Now, does that mean you're done on the Mississippi River? Absolutely not. I know to move around here to one of these, it's the smaller tributaries. Richard and David know, Fishing and Freedom and Rustic know exactly where I'm at. If I can't hit the main river, I'm hitting as close to it as I can. And I'm coming over here. I've done caught 8 channel cats sitting here while we're doing this. Okay? But yeah, I mean, I'm catching smaller fish, but I'm catching fish sitting out on the river at night, even though I couldn't fish the main channel. It's only 150 yards that way, and I'm pulling out some nice channel cat because I know to go here. So yeah, get with somebody, and you don't necessarily have to be right on the river. You can hit some of the backwaters on it and do just as well because they know where those spots are.
I want to do a quick shout out before you answer this question, Fishing Freedom. I want to challenge everybody in chat to share out Panfish Weekly and let's help him get more hook sets. He has amazing guests on Thursday nights. He has amazing shows. Let's get him up there to 1K. Please. That's where he rightfully belongs. He has awesome guests. He has awesome shows. He has a great co-host. So let's get him up there. Fishing and Freedom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say just kind of like the other guys said, like Lyle and Steve, definitely pay attention to some of these older guys that's been there and done that, and not necessarily older guys, but just some guys that's fished the river a lot and had the experience. They can take a lot of heartache and grief out of it for you. They've already made the mistakes and learned the hard way. So listen to these guys. If you don't have anyone there to physically take you out, watch a lot of these videos of guys that fish the river a lot and they're successful, and pick up tips and tricks from them guys. And as far as fishing from a boat, I would say just really be careful, and you really need to go with somebody that knows the river and I just wouldn't go haphazardly out there and just start fishing it. Pay
Yeah.
attention to these older guys, pick up some tips and tricks from them, and just respect the river and be careful on it.
Absolutely. You guys have touched on that several times, but I'm going to add this to it. I've been on that river in a boat. I'm going to go out some this year on a boat. But in Missouri, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Richard, because you'll know, and the rest of you will know from Missouri. But in Missouri state law, I think it is that as long as you're not moving on the boat, you can take your life jacket off, but you have to have it on when you're moving. Let me tell you something. If you're on the Mississippi River in a boat, you leave that life jacket on. I don't care if you're sitting still, anchored up, whatever. If I pulled up on a bank with my boat sitting in it, my life jacket is on. I've got a 14-foot boat out here off the end of Seven Island. You know what I'm talking about, Richard, over by that wing there? I got a 14-foot boat at the bottom of that river right there that I can tell you right now, if I didn't have a life jacket on, I would be there with it right now because that boat's still there. Do not take that jacket off on this river because the river don't care. You can say, oh, I don't like it. It's uncomfortable. And if you're on a boat in the river, hey, take it off if you want to. I'll feel sorry for you at your funeral. I'll tell you that.
Creel?
If you just have no other choice but to go on that river blind, without help from somebody else as far as advice on where to find fish, I always tell people fish big. And what I mean by that is if you've got a 10-mile stretch that you want to try to fish, find either the biggest point or the biggest ledge or the biggest hole or the biggest wing dam, the biggest single piece of structure in that stretch of river. Start fishing there and then work your way down from there. In my experience, the bigger the piece of structure is on a stretch of river, the more chance you have at holding big fish. So just fish big if all else fails.
Epic?
That's all a bunch of great advice. I'm going to say one thing. If you're new to catfishing in general, like if you got your first boat or you got your whatever, do not, I repeat, do not watch my videos and try to do what I do. It's taken me a long time to put myself in dangerous spots. Now, I'm not a big fan of life jackets because I'm just that. Because I figure that safety never rewarded me for much. I usually had to go do things, and but that's a long story. I'm like an old adrenaline junkie. I gotta have something exciting and dangerous before I even like to fish. But I would have to say that Creel's exactly right, and also Danny hit it right on the head. Those small boats on the Mississippi, we call them dying boats. And the reason is because they have short sides usually, those little 14-foot John boats. And I have literally been on the river and rescued people that are in those I usually try to tell them, don't double anchor below a dam, don't do this or don't do that. And they look at me like I'm just some young dipshit that just doesn't know anything. And pretty soon here comes all their gear floating past me and I got to go up and try to rescue them. I've seen many body bags on the dock. Many. I have not ever had to physically pull an expired person out of the river myself, but I have rescued a few live ones, and that's true. So if you do have a small boat, my advice is go to other rivers first and master that. Make sure you know your limitations because it's just not worth that. But if you have a bigger boat, pretty decently high sides, it's fairly safe depending on where you're going to be. Just make sure that you know what you're doing. You follow the correct rules. My advice is if you're really new, definitely go to smaller waters first and really learn that before you get out on the big river. But at the same time, you have to say, if you really want to fish the Mississippi, if you're off the shore, you can go just about anywhere and be pretty safe. Look for points, look for rock riprap, go in between wing dikes, go immediately below a dam. And from shore, Abbott does it all the time. Steve does it all the time. It's actually pretty amazing because there's a lot of guys that catch big fish off the shore. They may have to put a lot of time in to do it and get it the right time. But man, I'm telling you what, there's guys with 2 rods, a bucket, and a flashlight that have caught some pretty big fish on the Mississippi just by going to shore and throwing out some decent baits.
And
Absolutely.
what about you, Rustic?
Me, how I've
Yeah.
done it when I first started fishing that Mississippi River was I asked. I see guys out there carrying big catfish down through there. I said, hey, what kind of bait you using? What kind of tackle are you putting on that bait, And some of them would tell you, some of them would tell you don't get discouraged by it. It don't ever hurt to ask. And just watch the guys out there on the river that's catching these big cats and see how they're doing it. Your site will tell you, hey, I need to know what they're doing over there. And when they come out, just ask. If they tell you, they tell you. If they don't, they don't. There's somebody will come in there and say, hey, let me tell you how to do that. That's how I
I'll
learned.
tell you that. I'll tell you this: don't show up at the
But-
Mississippi River with a zip code 202.
Nope.
Don't do it.
Unless you're putting night crawlers on it and you like catching drum in 3 foot of water, then you're fine.
Yeah. But they come over, I'm catching big, and not with that rig. You're not.
Might
Okay.
catch him, you might not bring him in.
That's Danny go through real.
You'd be surprised how many people show up over here and line up on that main bank down there where I've consistently hooked 20 and 30 pounders with zip code 202. And yeah, somebody could get one in with it. But my first piece of advice is leave the 202 at home, please.
Epic Jello has a question for you. Is Keokuk the farthest north you can catch a big blue?
Yes, the
good
farthest
question.
north I would expect to catch a big blue in even a month of fishing because of the way that dam is formed. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen it. It's basically a one lock, and blues don't lock through very good. And then it falls like 40 or 50 feet from the top. It doesn't have one of those interior where they can go through the clams. So it does stop those blue cats from going up there. Now, there's all kinds of people that will disagree with me because they catch big male channel cats up there and they claim that they're blues. I said, do you ever catch any 20, 30? Do you ever catch any 20s? Yeah, once in a while, yeah. But do you ever catch any 40s or 50s? No, they don't.
They don't go past that
It's not their
dam.
fault because their grandfather's age. Before the dams, there used to be big blues that go all the way up into Minnesota.
Yeah.
But once they put those dams in, it just sort of stopped their migration. Like right now.
Yeah.
Now,
They don't
they'll
get past
go
that
through
dam.
clam-style dams, but they can't jump 50 feet up, and they don't lock through worth a darn.
It's almost like a big weir. It's just a solid
Yes.
wall. They can't,
Yep.
Yeah.
And they just don't get past Keokuk, and the ones that was above there's already been caught out. You catch a blue up again, it's a freak of nature now.
At the beginning of the show, I put a poll up in chat asking if they would like to see more rivers being showcased. The poll came out with 79% yes and 20% no.
Who are those 20%? I want to know right now.
I have no clue.
They're lake fishermen.
Top picking lake fishing.
They are.
I will be doing more showcasing of the rivers, and I would like to thank everyone on panel that was able to come up and join me and help showcase the mighty Mississippi. And everybody in chat, if you don't have these people's links to their channels, they're in the description. Share them out. Go with their hooks at them. Watch their videos. Show them some love. If you ever want to see some giant catfish, go to Epics. If you want to see the donkey baits he's talking about, watch his bait that he does. Watch how he makes his sinkers and these molds on his channel. Watch how Danny and Rustic fish in Mississippi.
Hey, he
What?
ain't always with me.
Watch Fishing in Freedom and Steve Adams, their tips and tricks that they use on the Mississippi. If you want to see how Creo does his tricks on the boat in the Mississippi and the holes he uses in his spots, go over, watch his lives, his videos, and see how he does his tricks, how he catches his baits. And again, wow, he has a great show on Monday nights where he has great guests on that helps you learn how to fish the tournaments and stuff like that. How you can catch bigger fish. He has some great videos on his show. And on Thursday night, he has ways he does tips, tricks, and jigs how you can catch the bait fish for the catching the big fish. All great shows. Go share some love and show some love. And thanks for coming in and joining us tonight on this mighty Mississippi. What do you guys have last words you'd like to say?
It's a great show. I had a great time tonight. I want to thank everybody for watching, and thanks for inviting me into it.
I'd like to say this is an awesome panel because there's a wide variety of expertise. There's a wide variety of strategy. There's a wide variety of, what these guys do, and they're all experts in their own way. I mean, if you like to fish a certain way, you can find somebody on this panel that fishes like you would. And I think it's a great thing. I mean, all experience levels, all kinds of stuff. I mean, jeepers, I'm very disappointed I couldn't hear what Lyle had to say.
I don't know what's wrong with that part, but Epic, I'm glad you all were able to come up here and do this.
Buddy, I enjoy every bit of this. I love listening to everybody that's, got catfishing in the heart, and they're out there doing stuff. I mean, jeepers, I met Fishing in Freedom at the Cat Con, and we talked for pretty near an hour. I mean, just talking about little things that was, cool. Just the experience of it.
I mean, this came out really good. It came out better than what I thought it did. I didn't know how good this was coming out because I was nervous and didn't know how things were going to work out. And this show came out really, really good.
Well, I didn't say a whole lot tonight, which is really out of character for me, for people that know me.
No.
But here's, the thing is, I want people to pay attention and make note of each person on this panel and start paying a little more, pay some attention to their channel this year, because my prediction is the guys you're seeing right now on the Mississippi River are going to show you something this year. Because myself personally, I'm doubling down. I'm going to do twice as much as I did in the past years, and I'm going to show you what the Mississippi River is all about. Now, as far as the panel tonight, when I found out Tim was going to be on here, that kind of slowed me down a little bit too, because in my mind I was thinking, man, this is, good God, epic. You know who this guy is? And he is an encyclopedia of knowledge. There's nobody that can test that. I'm telling you. And when I found out he was going to be on here, and if you notice what Avid did tonight, he went around to each one of us and then saved him for last. And I just knew it was going to be asking us all questions. Get to him, and he goes, "Okay, you guys are all idiots."
Actually, that happened because I was trying to talk Epic into how to get into the live stream on my cell phone. while waiting.
You know what? I've always been of the opinion, every opinion is valid. Every strategy is valid because we all have different desires. I mean, not everybody's got to fish like me. Not everybody's got to fish like Avid. Not everybody's got to fish like Lyle, even though I don't know how he fishes from tonight because I couldn't hear him. But it's all great. I don't care if it's 2-pound channel cats that flips your trigger or 80-pound flatheads. Matter of fact, I just put out a video today that I specifically show how to contact big flatheads amidst on the Mississippi amidst tons of shallow water. And a lot of people, you know, I keep talking about main channel, but when that time is right, that in my area in early June, all the way up almost through July 4th, you can go into those secondary channels, find a hole that's not all that impressive, as long as it's got certain things, and you'll have to watch it to see it. Because I haven't put out a decent, you know, good epic catfish video in about 6 months. I haven't had the time, so I'm pretty excited about it. So yeah.
Well, it's like me. You know, I've always targeted channel catfish, so it's a privilege for me to be up here with you guys that's targeted them big giant blues and stuff like that. You know, so I've learned a lot myself. I mean,
I love
like I
big
said,
channel cats.
I've never really fished with blues until Danny, you know, said, "Hey, you never caught one? Well, you need to go with me." And so, you know, I went with Richard Fishing Freedom and Danny, and I just sat back and watched how they done stuff, and I had a blast going with them and everything. And I've learned a lot here tonight. And, you know, if I could show somebody how to catch some good channel catch, you know, because I just love to fish. I mean, I don't care if that fish is that long or that long. I mean, I've caught my PB channels 30 pounds. And
30.
I've caught some bigger ones after that. But, you know, as far as the blues, I'm hoping to get a big blue this year because my PB blue so far is 6 pounds.
I've fished for channels for years and I've never caught a 30.
You haven't?
Nope.
My
I
biggest
got-
one on the river, my biggest channel cat was 19 3/4 pounds.
Epic.
I got lucky. I was fishing next to a granary in a deep hole, and the barge come by, and I guess the turbines from the barges washed my line up there. 'Cause I seen my line going, and it just stopped. And I said, well, I'll just leave it there, and it went right down by the big pylons. And well, I pulled out about 4 big channel cat out there. The biggest one was 30 pounds.
Huge.
If I ever catch a 30-pound channel cat, I'm shoving a couple of shad down his belly and going for the record.
That's
Epic, there's a lake over here by me that's called Horseshoe Lake. It has some monster channel cats in it and some big flatheads
Nice.
that I know you would like.
Nice.
Well, for me, I've enjoyed it. It's fun to do these kind of things. And I did learn one thing tonight. One very important thing. If I ever fish with Tim Scott, I'm going to wear 2 life preservers.
I do have a question for Tim Scott and Lyle. I will be trying to get a panel together, 2 or 3, maybe 4 for the Missouri River for next week. If you guys are interested with that,
Sure.
let me know.
Ooh, I'd love to watch that.
Yeah,
I'm
I
interested.
fish it a little bit.
And
I
I'm
will
assuming
get a couple
Lyle said
messages
so
out.
too.
You fix your hearing so you can hear what I say.
You said fix your hearing so you
I'll
can hear what
definitely
it
be
says.
watching it. I like to get on these rivers I can.
Oh, and I got to add, I'm going to buy my 2nd life preserver while I'm in Rio.
See, and Ava, this is going to be interesting because Lyle's got a ton of experience on the Missouri, and I'm as interested in hearing what Lyle has to say as what I've got to say. Even thinking about it, because you know the Missouri's been one of those things where I fish the Missouri, but I'm so close to the Mississippi that most of the time it behooves me to fish the Mississippi instead of the Missouri. So this is going to be a really interesting panel. I'm going to like it.
It'll be fun.
I can't wait to see what you guys have to say about the Mississippi.
Yep.
And I mean the Missouri.
Yeah.
Mississippi's still stuck in my head. But I will say
You guys
this.
may have said something about this earlier, but Tim, I'm going to ask you and Lyle. In your opinion, which one is more dangerous, the Mississippi or the Missouri?
I'll go first.
Go ahead, please.
I think the Missouri is actually more dangerous at night. And I'll tell you why. Because when those wing dikes are sticking out of the water, it's really difficult to see. You come around a bend and you think that it's the opposite bank or maybe a little bit of sandbank, and it's not. It's a wing dike that goes clear out. And if you're hauling butt, you could hit the tip of that wing dike pretty easily. If you didn't know, if you thought, okay, I'm in the clear, you could get really confused because it's really fast water. You get a little fog settling in on it, and it's not lit up very well. And those wing dikes are sticking way out there on those bends, and they finger. You'll get them to where there's hardly any main channel there. And if you don't hit that needle, you can pretty easily die.
I agree
now, the Mississippi's
100%.
got other things, but also the Missouri is fast, and if it rises and there's a big bunch of trees coming down, they don't make any sound. You could all of a sudden be inundated by a gigantic tree and you don't even know it. So, I mean, you gotta, I mean, I'm constantly rubbernecking when I fish the Missouri at night. I'm constantly rubbernecking on the Mississippi, and the worst thing to do is just train yourself on the rods for hours and not watch upstream.
I agree with Tim on that.
Right,
the only thing that I would say is that the Missouri River has no dams or anything to restrict the flow from South Dakota all the way till it hits the Mississippi River above St. Louis. Now, once that you get past the dams at the St. Louis area, the Mississippi River becomes the same way. It's free flowing all the way to the Gulf. And the faster the current is, the more dependent you are on that river. So, it becomes the Missouri River, only bigger.
It is a monster down here.
It is. When it gets below Memphis, it really grows. It really does.
There's areas of the river down here that it's 7,000 feet wide.
And 150 foot deep.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
I think I will need a contact way to get a hold of you so I can send you the link next week.
Creel's got it. And I know you've got Creel's.
Right.
So, yeah, permission to send it.
Okay. I'll send it to him.
That's very interesting what Lyle had to say. He didn't have a whole lot to say. So what I'm going to have to do is y'all have 2.5 hours in this. I'm going to have 5 hours in it because I got to watch it again tonight.
I will put it this way. I've learned a lot tonight from everybody on the panel. And I know a lot of people in chat learned a lot from everybody on the panel about the Mississippi. And I can't wait to see how it goes next week on the Missouri. Then the week after that is going to be the Ohio. I'll get a panel up there for the Ohio, and I already got a few people listed in my mind for the Ohio panel, which would probably be Josh, J-Dog, Roger, redheaded stepchild.
All good candidates.
Oh, yeah.
All good candidates.
A lot knows what I'm talking about when it comes to redheaded stepchild.
I do, as a matter of fact, yes. Listen, guys, I'm going to have to jump off here. This dog is pawing my leg up. She's ready to go out, and I got to take her out. Thank you guys for letting me be a part of what you're doing tonight. I had a great time. And Tim, I'll see you
very much.
soon.
Thanks, Avid. Thanks, everybody.
I enjoyed having you guys all up here. And any you want to be fun on here, let me know, and I'll gladly do it. But I will be saying this: when I get my work schedule back in order this year, I'll be hammering the Mississippi and the Kaskaskia to show you what both rivers can do. And good night and tight lines.
Thank you, Abby. Bye,
Good
everybody.
job. Appreciate it.
Tails up.
All right,
Have a
I'm
good
going back
night,
to
everybody.
All right.
I
Let it
got
go.
2 rods bending right now.
Oh, hold on.
So are we out?
Yeah, we're out.
Okay.
Oh, not yet, but we're
Really?
fixing to be. Give me a minute.
Hey, Danny.